We have a new film camera coming out, and we've got to talk. 2024 has been the year of new film cameras, and that's honestly such a crazy thought. The fact that we're getting freshly made, new, manufactured film cameras in the year of 2024 is absolutely insane. Pentax released their Pentax 17, which is a half-frame camera, and then Mint kind of gave a modern take and a refresh on the classic Rolly 35 millimeter film camera. But now we have a new one incoming, and according to their Kickstarter, it's shipping as soon as March of 2025. That camera being the Smartflex 4x5. Now, ever since this camera has been announced, my feed, I feel like, has been rather negative. I've seen so much criticism surrounding this camera, and I feel like they have it all wrong. Okay, first, let's start with the arguments against it. Obviously, probably the biggest argument I've seen against it is the price. It's not cheap. So they have a few different options. They have the body, they have a body and a lens, they have body, lens plus Instax back, and a few other options as well. But I'm gonna run through these prices really quickly. Body only is $1,989 USD. For the body and the lens, it costs $2,889 USD. And then the body, lens, and Instax back is $3,187 USD. So again, not a cheap camera, but there's a few things here. The main one being that, so the most direct comparison to the Smartflex is the Graflex RB. You can even say that it's a direct knockoff, if you will. When the Graflex RB was first released, I believe it was like somewhere in the 20s that they first made the Graflex RB. When you look at the original price of that camera and then you adjust for inflation, they're about the same price. This camera has never been cheap. This has always been a very niche camera. This has always been geared more towards prosumer to professional photographers who have a very specific need within a very specific niche in large format photography. Back then, it wasn't as niche as it is today, but the point stands that this has always been an expensive niche camera for very specific people. Nothing's changed. So I don't understand the people who are complaining about the price when this has always been the case for these types of cameras. And with all of that aside, you also have to understand they're building a new camera from the ground up, not just any camera, a film camera. The main problem with manufacturing film cameras for years has always been the fact that they require lots and lots of very small, minuscule parts. Screws, springs, gears, rollers, pins, etc. There's lots of very small moving parts that go into the body of a camera since they're mechanical and they're not electronic like a digital camera. Not to mention that it's not as simple as just walking over to Home Depot and grabbing the screws you need to build your camera. Lots of these have to be CNC'd machined and literally built. Like you have to build the screws and the springs to the exact specs for the camera. And then lastly, you also have to remember that you have to train these people to assemble the cameras. They don't just magically assemble themselves. Like you have to train people to put these cameras together. And in an industry like film camera manufacturing, which is basically non-existent these days, there's not a lot of current knowledge about how to assemble these cameras. You literally have to train an assembly line workforce to put these cameras together. The lack of movement has been the other kind of big argument I've seen online. So if you're not familiar with large format photography, traditional large format cameras have a front standard and a back standard and then the bellows in between. Those front and back standards can be moved, if you will, and that allows for some interesting photography techniques with the focal plane. Because you're moving the front standard and the back standard, you're shifting the focal plane away from its traditional kind of just up and down plane, like with a traditional camera. And this allows for techniques such as tilt and shift, and they're used in a variety of ways. And a lot of people are arguing that's the whole reason why you shoot large format. Now, I get it. That is a big part of large format photography. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I do think it's disingenuous to sit there and say that that's the only reason why you should shoot large format. I mean, for starters, you have the huge negative that you're working with. I mean, as you go larger in negative size, you get increased resolution, detail, tonality, grain structure, etc. And so when you're shooting with 4x5 and 8x10, you're getting access to a much larger negative than even what you're getting with, say, a 6x7 negative out of like a Mamiya 7 or Pentax 6.7. It's a huge negative, and that's very attractive for a lot of people. You're also able to gain access to that quote-unquote large format look. Now, the last time I explained this online, I got roasted for it, so I'm not going to go into detail about it right now, but we all know what we're talking about when we say large format look. Depth of field, compression, field of view, whatever you want to call it, you get more of it when you shoot on large format. And that's attractive also to a lot of people. The last argument I've seen against this camera is why not buy an original Graflex RB? Well, that's an easy one, and there's many points I could make against this, but for starters, I'm taking a freshly, newly made manufactured camera over an old one any day. I am. If Pentax came out with a brand new Pentax 6.7 tomorrow, I'm taking that over my original Pentax 6.7 that was made in 1969 any day. I don't feel like there's an argument against that. Not to mention that the Smartflex is going to come with a lot of quality of life features that the Graflex didn't have. Like, it's going to have a better focusing screen. It's going to have a graph lock back. Not to mention that if you wanted any of those quality of life features with a current Graflex RB, you'd have to send it off to get modified. If you buy one off eBay, you're almost undoubtedly going to have to send it off for CLA. You're going to have to get it modified so you can get a graph lock back so that you can shoot with accessories on it. And by that point, between CLA, modifications, buying the actual body in decent condition, etc., you're going to spend about the same amount of money as you would with the Smartflex. And the Smartflex, in my opinion, is still going to outperform it with things like the better focusing screen, etc. My argument for this camera, and honestly, it's the only argument I feel like I need to make about it, is that I feel like people are looking at this wrong. I think people are looking at this as an actual 4x5 camera, and they're trying to stack it up against other 4x5 cameras. And I think that's the wrong mindset. I think we need to look at this camera as more of a platform instead of just strictly a 4x5 camera. With it inherently being a 4x5 camera, that means that it'll cover any format below it. Now, I know like the lenses and stuff won't be perfectly optimized for those other formats and stuff, but still, a camera that'll allow you, while you're on location, to shoot multiple formats out of the same camera is quite appealing to me. I mean, we already kind of see that with cameras like the RB, RZ system where, you know, you could have your 6.7 back on there, but then you could throw a 6.45 back on there. Like, that kind of flexibility for like a landscape photographer, portrait photographer, whatever, is very appealing. And so we have to look at this camera as a platform, not a 4x5 camera. So when I look at a camera like this, I don't think about just shooting it strictly for 4x5. I think about going out and shooting a sheet of 4x5 and then turning around and shooting the same composition on 6x12 panorama. Or going out and shooting 6x12 and thinking, like the panoramic aspect ratio isn't really working for me right now. Let me go down to 6x9 and see if that'll kind of close up the ends a little bit and it work a little bit better. You know, or honestly, even treating it like, you know, an RB system where you just have interchangeable bags and so you could shoot multiple film stocks at the same time. You got two 6x9 bags and I can shoot color and black and white on location easily. And honestly, the thing I'm most excited about is taking large format portraits of people, like being able to shoot a sheet of 4x5 as a portrait of someone, but then throwing on the Instax back and then being able to hand them a physical print of their portrait that I just took as a thank you. Like, there's so many interesting things that you can do with this camera because you can shoot such a variety of formats. So trying to box this in as just an expensive large format camera that doesn't even have movements, I feel like is completely wrong and very unfair to the camera. Like, this camera has a lot of capabilities and it'll provide so much flexibility, at least for someone like me when I, you know, don't always have the pack room to pack so many different cameras. And for those saying that you're not realistically shooting 6x9 on a camera like this, you don't know me. I will very gladly haul this camera up a mountainside every day of the week. I shoot film for a reason. If I wanted convenience, I would go shoot digital. Which brings me to my closing thoughts here. I think we have a problem in the film photography space. Expecting cost effectiveness, convenience, blanket solution cameras, especially in today's society and era of film photography, I feel like is a complete fallacy, to be honest with you. This entire medium of film photography is expensive, it is inconvenient, and it is very niche. That's the whole point of film photography. It's inconvenient, it is expensive, the cameras are too heavy, it costs a lot of money to shoot it, it makes you slow down and be intentional about the photographs you're making. Like, that's the whole point of film photography. And for you to expect that any new products that come out to support this medium is going to be any of those things, inexpensive, blanket solution, convenient, etc., I don't understand that thought process, and I feel like we need to be more self-aware about the fact that we are shooting a medium of photography that is expensive, inconvenient, and is very niche. And to expect anything else, I feel like is a complete fallacy, and it is just wrong. If you wanted the opposite of any of those things, cost effectiveness, convenience, etc., go shoot digital. That's the whole point of digital, was that it erased a lot of the headaches that came with film photography. Digital is much more convenient, much cheaper, etc. If you want that, go shoot digital. At some point, we have to decide if we actually really like film photography or not. Like, do we like it to the point that we're willing to spend more and more money on it? And if not, that's fine. It's your dollars. You do whatever you want to. But for the people who like film photography, we've got to support these few and far between projects, okay? With the Pentax 17 launch and the Rolly 35 launch, like, I saw a lot of negativity around those launches too. Even though the Pentax 17 is like sold out everywhere, I've seen a lot of negativity around those announcements too, because they don't solve the specific problem that someone had, or, you know, they're too expensive, or that's not what we asked for. We've got to support these projects, or no one's going to make them. At some point, people are going to recognize that anytime a new film product comes out, people just get crapped on for it, and they're going to stop making it, and we're going to kill the format that we love. And like, honestly, like, last just like off the dome thought that I'm just having right now is, I've seen a lot of people talk about that we don't need more cameras, we need more film. Well, do you think that the best way to go about getting new film is to crap on new camera launches? That makes no sense. Like, we have to support anything and everything film photography if we want more innovations in the space. Like, we have to show that there's demand. Even if it's not your demand specifically, we still have to show that there's demand. We show more demand, the more products that will come out, and eventually we will get the things that you want, like new film, etc. Okay, rant over. I've just seen a lot of negativity surrounding this camera, and I find it to be really unfortunate. I think we need to be a little bit more self-aware in this space. I, for one, am very, very, very excited about this camera. I've already put in my pre-order, and I can't wait for it to show up on my doorstep. Obviously, I will have a video out as soon as I get my hands on it, and I can't wait to get to shooting with this thing. This camera is very, very, very interesting to me. I'm already formulating projects surrounding this camera. If it lives up to all of the hype surrounding, you know, the launch and, you know, what the creators are showing and all that stuff, if it lives up to the hype, this camera is going to be incredible. At least it is for me. And I'm, you know, seeing how well the Kickstarter's going, I think it'll be great for a lot of people as well. So, with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.